Hello, today I will be working on the general forms of conics for pre-calculus. I will be working on the single problem question. I will be finding the conic name and writing it in standard form. So let's get started. So for this equation right here, what we first want to look at is what type of conic it is. And in order for us to look what type of conic it is, we first want to look at these two values right here. So we have a 5 and then we have a 4. And this will be our A value and this will be our C value. So what we want to do for these is we want to multiply these. So for A times C, this will equal out to 5 times -4. Okay, and that comes out to just -20. And we have a couple rules when naming the conics. Right here I mentioned some of them. So what we're going to be looking at is this first one right here, the hyperbola. So it says AC, if it's less than 0, then it equals a hyperbola. So if we take a look at our AC here, if we do -20, we know that that's less than 0. So that equals a hyperbola. So we know that that's going to be, oops, sorry. We're going to put this on the side over here. We know that that's going to be our hyperbola. So the conic name for this one is hyperbola. Okay. So now that we have our conic name, what we're going to do is rearrange this equation in order for us to get the x values together and then the y's not together but in order. So first we're going to do 5x squared. We're going to take this 20 right here plus 20x. And then we're going to take our y values now. So we have -4y squared right here. We're going to drop that down over here. And then we have plus 24y plus 24y. Now this number right here, it doesn't have a variable attached to it. So what we're going to do is move it to the other side of the equation. So what we're going to do here is do plus 36. For us to cancel this out, we have to do plus 36 because minus times a positive cancels it out. So that cancels out completely. And what we do on one side, we do to the other side. So plus 36 right here. So we're just going to drop that 36 down to the equation, and we're going to do equals 36. Okay. So our next step for us to solve this equation is to essentially complete the square. And what we're going to do is take this first term right here, the 5x squared, and we're going to put it to the side, put parentheses, and do x squared plus, what we're going to do here is 20 divided by 5. That equals out to 4. Right, so we're going to do 4x here. And then after we found the common factor, what we're going to do is do a plus sign and do a blank space right there. This is going to be useful for later when we're going to be completing the square. We then move on to the next part of the equation. So we have -4y squared and 24y. So we're going to take this front term, -4. Sorry, let me change this. -4, and then put a y squared plus, we know that 24 divided by -4, that equals out to -4. Let me make sure. Sorry, not -4, 6. Okay, so what we're going to do is do -6 here. And then same process that we did here. We're going to do a plus blank space and then cover that parentheses. Okay. And then we're just going to bring our equation down also. So it's 36 equals 36. We're going to bring that down also. Okay, now that we have that, what we're going to do is essentially we're going to, oops, I forgot to put a y right there. So next thing we're going to do is take this middle value right here, and essentially we're going to divide it by 2, then square it. So let's start off with the x. So 4 divided by 2, that comes out to just 2. But our next step is to square it. So we're going to go ahead and add a squared right there to that. And then that just comes out to just 4. Okay, so now that we have the 4 here, what we're going to do is attach it to that blank space that we made earlier. So we're going to add the 4 right there. Okay, and then same process for the y. We're going to do -6 divided by 2. So that just comes out to -3. And then we're going to square it. And that comes out to 9. Side note, just be careful when you're typing this in your calculator, because I found myself, what I did is I did -3 squared, like so, and it gave me a -9. But always make sure you put parentheses in your calculator for it to become a positive. This will be the right value to do it. The right way to get the right value, sorry. Okay, so now that we got the outcome of this, we're going to move it to the blank space that we made earlier. Okay. Now, so now that we got those values, what we're going to do is, what we do on one side, we want to do it to the other side. So we're going to do +4 and then +9. But this is wrong. So earlier, if we look at our equation, we see that we have terms in front of the, let me change the color. We have terms in front of the parentheses, right? So what we want to do is multiply that term by the outcome of what we got when we squared it. So 5 is right there, and then we take our 4 right here. So 5 times 4, that equates to a 20. Okay, so instead of +20, it's going to be, sorry, instead of +4, it's going to be +20. And then same process over here. We take our -4 right here. We take our 9, multiply those, and you get -36, I believe. Yep. So -36. Okay. So instead of the 9 right here, we're going to just erase that, do -36. Okay. Now that we figured out most of the parts of our equation, we're going to rearrange it again. So first thing you want to do is just bring that first term again. So this 5 right here, bring it out again down here. We're going to do a parentheses, and then we're going to take our first term, so the x right here inside the parentheses, but we're not going to square it. We're just going to put x right here. Our next term is going to be, it's going to be this part right here. It's going to be the number before we squared it. So we know that this is a +2, so we're going to do +2 right there. And then always make sure you add the square root. So we're going to add the square root to the outside. Okay, now we move on to the second part. So same thing. We take this -4 right here. We do -4 or -4. Let me see. Let me change this. We take the y, just the y. We're not going to use the y squared. And then we're going to look at the term before we squared it. So it's going to be this term right here. And that is a -3. And then always make sure you add the square at the end. So squared. Okay, now we finished the other part of the equation. So equals, and then we come loop back around over here. We're going to figure out what this is. So we know that 36 plus 20, that equates to 56, okay? Now we take the second part, which is a -36, and subtract that, and that comes out to, let me do that real quick. This just comes out to 20, okay? So now that we got that, we're just gonna move it to here. And this is what we got so far. I found something quite interesting whenever I was solving this. So what I did is I put this equation right here, I put it into Desmos. So let me show you real quick what that looks like. Let's see. Okay, so this is what I got when I typed that equation in, but it's technically the correct answer, but what it's asking us is to find it in standard form. So this wouldn't be correct. Well, at least this equation wouldn't be correct. So if we go back, so we know that this, well, what we found earlier is that it was a hyperbola, okay? So if we go over here, we know that hyperbolas, they have two parts of equations. So they have a vertical, and that equation comes out to y minus k squared minus x h squared. We have a b squared right there. We have an a squared right here. And that equates to a 1. We also have a horizontal part, which is just a quick flip. So it's going to be x minus h squared, a squared minus y minus k squared, and then b squared equals 1. Okay. And what this looks like on a graph is essentially it's a curve like this with the asymptotes coming this way. And then for horizontal, it's going to be bending this way horizontally. We have the asymptotes right here. And then we just have the center in the middle, right? So that's what that looks like. But if we look at our equation so far, we see that it's not quite a hyperbola equation. So what we're going to do here is, let me erase this real quick. Ooh. Okay, so what we want to do here is rearrange this equation so that it matches one of these hyperbolas. First thing that we want to do is divide this 20 by itself. And we know that a number divided by itself is just equals to just 1. But what we do on one side, you want to do to the other side, right? So we're also going to do divided by 20 here, divided by 20 here. Okay, so now that we got that, we're just going to simplify this. So we know that 20 divided by 5, that just comes out to 4. So we're going to bring this equation down, x plus 2 squared over 4. Okay, so we got that part. Now we go to the second part, which is the y part. So we take 20 divided by -4, that just comes out to -5. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna put a negative right there and then do y minus 3 squared and then a 5. We're not gonna put the negative right here because we already have one right here, so we're just gonna ignore this. And that's correct right there. Okay, so then we bring down our 1 equals to 1 right there. This right here will be the standard form that we're looking for. And we see that that matches up with the horizontal one, this one right here. Okay. So if we type this in back into the Desmos, let me create a new one. Okay, so we have x plus 2 divided by 4 minus y is 3 divided by 5 equals 1. Oh, forgot to square it. Okay. So it's kind of interesting because it's exactly the same thing, except it's in standard form, and that's the form that we're looking at. I just found it quite interesting that this first part right here, which is a 5 equals to 20, is basically the same thing as the second part of the equation. But as you can see, it's essentially the same thing. But it's quite interesting. But yeah, this will be your final standard form equation. And we know that this is a hyperbola also.